Hi, it's Peter. Today, let's talk about biometric authentication in Android. Let's go. We'll start by adding the biometric library dependency to our project. We do that by going to the biometric library in the Android documentation. Copy the dependencies to our Gradle file. Hit sync now. I'll wait for the dependencies to download. To keep our code base organized and clean, we'll put all biometric code in this nice biometric util class. It's of type object, so everything can be accessed statically from anywhere in the project. The first thing we want to do is to check if the device has biometric authentication enabled. To do that, we create biometric status function. It's a function that returns a status code as an int. We use biometric manager class to call canAuthenticate method that will return a status code. The status code is one of these cases. Biometric success means the device has biometric authentication enabled. No hardware means that the device does not have biometric authentication capability. Or non-enrolled, which means the user has not registered any biometric authentication method. So now canAuthenticate is deprecated because it requires authenticator type. We can specify a type that we're looking for, such as biometric strong. Biometric strong represents fingerprint sensor or a camera with face recognition. And to broaden that, we can even add device credentials that will cover cases such as pattern or passcode or a PIN. So now our biometric status function will cover a wider range of cases. Here are some of the cases that we're most interested in. Biometric success, no hardware, non-enrolled. Each stored in its own little function. Is biometric ready function returns true? If the biometric status function returns success. No biometric hardware returns true? If the biometric status function returns no hardware. Same goes with no biometric enrolled. In Kotlin, if the function has only one line, we can treat it as a property with an equal sign. So now, we can make biometric status function as a private function and expose these three little functions to the rest of the app. This is how the biometric dialog looks like. It has a title, subtitle, description, and a negative button. We can configure this information using biometric prompt info object. We'll have this function to create it for us. Get biometric prompt info. It returns prompt info from the biometric prompt class. It accepts title, subtitle, and description. And then we create a prompt info object and configure the title, subtitle, description, and the negative button that we call build to create it. Now, if we want this class to create the biometric dialog, we'll need a listener to act as a mediator to help the calling activity or fragment to get authentication updates. That's why we need this biometric auth listener interface. It has two functions, one for success, one for error. The success function has one parameter of type authentication result from biometric prompt class. The error function has error code and error message parameters. Now we're ready to create the biometric dialog. So we'll create a function to do that for us. We call it create biometric prompt. It accepts activity and a listener of type biometric auth listener that we just created. And it will return biometric prompt. To construct a biometric prompt, we need activity, executor, and a callback. Here's how we create the executor. It takes the main executor of the context Callback class. Its job is to run tasks on the main thread. In this case, the authentication callback methods. The callback object is of type authentication callback from the biometric prompt class. It implements an authentication error where we can call our listener function on biometric authentication error function and pass it error code and the error string. It also implements an authentication succeeded where we can use our listener function on biometric authentication success and pass it the result. Now, we successfully satisfied our biometric prompt construction requirements. We have the activity, executor, and a callback. All we need is to put things together and create a public function that will show the biometric prompt to the user. This show biometric prompt function will help us to do that. It accepts title, subtitle, description, activity, and a listener. We use the title, subtitle, and description to create the prompt info, and use the activity and listener to create biometric prompt. Then we call Authenticate method on the biometric prompt and pass it the prompt info, and that will cause the biometric dialog to show to the user. To use our biometric util, let's show biometric authentication after a button click. We use a function show biometric prompt, and we only need to set the activity and the listener. We get error on the listener because our activity needs to implement biometric auth listener interface. These are the auth listener callback methods. On biometric authentication success, that will be called after the user successfully authenticated himself with the biometric dialog. On biometric authentication error, it will return the error code and the error message. Also, here is a good place to use our no biometric enroll check as well as no biometric hardware check. Here we have a log message to show an error. It'll show the error code and the error message. After we run the app on the emulator and click the button, we'll see an error. The code is 11 and the message, no fingerprints enrolled. Thanks for watching. I hope you learned something.